And so, 10 days, okay, it only took 10 days. We just 10 days, 2 dates, boom, we started dating, and that's the happy ending to that story. So, but I wanted to share that story today because, you know, from that first incident, I asked myself what went wrong, and there is one word that actually comes to mind that I think about, and that word is hype. And why did I pick this word hype? Because, when I think about it, when I was just sitting around for 3 years, just thinking about this girl, I I just kind of built her up in my mind so much so that I had set myself up for disappointment. And and I feel like today it's a lot like that. We live in this hype culture. We have these commercials, advertisements in the news. It's all about these superlatives, like this is the best product you'll ever have, or this is the best food. Or we have the news telling us this is the worst disaster of all time, the worst shooting, or the coronavirus, millions infected, right? And we live in this culture where we have all the superlatives are exhausted, and oftentimes I feel like that causes us to miss the bigger picture, that we're often left discouraged and disappointed. And I feel like as Christians today, actually Christianity, we live in this hype culture even within Christianity. I feel that a lot of times we have these powerful sermons or these epic mission trips or these inspiring retreats that take on us on these amazing spiritual journeys that lead us to this mountaintop experience. And then, which is perfectly fine. I'm not criticizing that, but I feel like a lot of times after all that is said and done, it just sort of fizzles and goes back to normal. It's like work is still work, school is still school. You still have the same problems in your life. You may have anxiety, depression, relationship problems, and those things don't really go away. We had this premium experience with God, and yet here we still are. And I think that's a problem that we face as Christians today, is that we get too busy experiencing the now and planning for the future, but we kind of sort of completely disregard the past. There's this famous line that goes like this: I'm never going back. The past is in the past. Let it go. Let it go. If you guys didn't know, that's the Frozen song, Let It Go, okay? But my point being is that there's this message being sung. It's like, you know what? Don't worry about the past. We have what's ahead of you. It's magical. It's amazing. And truth be told, I think the past is a bit underrated. I think, in fact, that I can argue that it is the most important thing, because people like to tell you that we should live in the now and plan for the future. But what I want to say today is that let's give the past its due diligence, because without the past, we wouldn't be where we are today. And I believe, because when I think about problems that we face, I think, what is the opposite? What is something that we can do to counteract it? And when we live in this hype culture that we live today, I ask, what is something we can do that counteracts the hype culture? And I want to propose that to counteract, I believe what we need to do, each one of us, is to have some positive reflection of the past, a positive reflection of what we have or what we've been through. Because I think by doing so, we're allow ourselves to first be able to learn from our mistakes and to improve on them, or improve ourselves, and two, to be truly grateful. That short story I just shared with you about that girl that I had a crush on for 3 years, I mean, if you look back and you could just say, you know what? That was an innocent crush, man. Like, don't beat yourself up so much about it. You were in third grade, sixth through sixth grade. Like, you don't have to worry too much about it. That's true. But you know what the problem was with me for that situation was that it wasn't that I made that mistake with this, person where I just hyped it up and I just psyched myself out. The problem is that in the coming years through high school and college, I continued to make those mistakes with other girls, where I made where I just kind of kept psyching myself out, where I over idealized them. And I kept making the same mistakes. And instead, because I kept feeding myself this idea, is like, oh, there are plenty of fish in the sea. You can always go, there's always the next girl you can go for. And I was so focused on moving on to the next thing that I didn't take a moment to step back and say, you know what? Wait, maybe instead of looking so much for the next thing, maybe I need to look within myself and how I can improve upon what I did before. And I think that is just so important that we don't that we don't do enough today. That we're so much caught up in what we're doing now and what we need to do that we don't take enough from the past. We don't allow ourselves to learn from it, or to really cherish what we have now compared to what we did. I'm very much into the NBA and the NFL. I love following the sports and following the players and watching the games. And I don't know if you guys know, but every year there is a draft. They draft new players from colleges, high school, or from around the country. And every year the NFL drafts about 250 players. Okay, so if you're one of the lucky 250, you get to be part of the NFL, and you could join an NFL team. Or in the NBA, they have about 60 players they pick a year. And usually, if you think about all the superstars that have existed, they always been picked high because these are players that are so good, even in high school and college, they know that these guys are it, right? So these teams will covet for these players. Some notables, if you guys know, like Michael Jordan, right? He played for the NBA. A lot of us know Michael Jordan. He was drafted in 1984. He was drafted 3rd overall. So his potential was seen early, right? Or LeBron James, he's a very popular basketball player. He was actually picked 1st overall in 2003. If you think about the NFL, there's Peyton Manning, popular quarterback. He was picked 1st overall. Patrick Mahomes, he just won the last Super Bowl. He was picked 10th overall. So all these players get picked, right, at really high positions in the draft because they're so coveted. Well, I want to mention one NFL player. I don't know if you guys know. Do people know who Tom Brady is? Tom Brady, he's like a popular quarterback. He played for the New England Patriots for 20 years. He moved teams. But nonetheless, the point is a lot of people consider him to be the best quarterback of all time. In fact, a lot of people think he's the best player ever because no one has won more Super Bowls than him. He's won 6 Super Bowls, and no player has ever matched that number. So a lot of people regard him to be the best. Do you guys want to know where he went in the draft? I said there are 256 players that get picked, okay? Tom Brady was drafted in 2000, the year 2000. He was picked at 199th. There were 198 players they picked over Tom Brady at the time. No one thought he was any good. They thought, oh, this is just some backup quarterback. Tom Brady, a lot of people, it's a household name now, but what many people don't know is that no one believed in this guy. You can type YouTube, Tom Brady, draft review, whatnot. It's like, he was just like a blip on a radar. No one saw anything. And it's so incredible because I remember watching an interview with Tom Brady, and and they were reflecting on about his humble beginnings, and he was talking about how he was always the backup quarterback for wherever he played, and he worked no matter how hard he worked. He was always sort of in the background. He was never quite in the spotlight. And I remember during one of his interviews, this is when he's already achieved so much success. He's won multiple Super Bowls, and he's married to a beautiful wife. He is rich. And this is a guy who has every reason to be proud of himself and to feel amazing about himself. And they're having this interview with him, and as they're talking about about the draft day, he actually mid-interview, he actually starts crying. He cries because he remembers back then that moment of disappointment, because he's particularly felt so sorry for his parents because his parents were so supportive of his dream to become an NFL player. And when all those names were being called and he was watching it, he genuinely believed he hadn't made it. And he had felt like such a failure in that moment. And he's crying during this interview. And, and he was so thankful, though, that his parents were by his side, but he was so sorry to them. And I just thought to myself, like, wow, what a guy, right? Like, this guy, like, he has every reason to believe he's the man. He's married to, a supermodel. He's so rich, worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And yet he still has the presence of mind to really be grateful for what he has and to be truly like emotional about such a moment that really, like, at this point in his life, he shouldn't even worry about because, the past is in the past, right? Like, why care? But for him, he truly is grateful for what he has. You watch any interview with him, he's always so humble and lifting up others. And I just think to myself, like, if a guy such as a popular celebrity such as him can take a moment just to be, to positively self-reflect on how he's come so far and be so humble about it, why not me? Like, I think about myself and, like, I've been a dentist for 5 years, right? But when I look back, like, let's say dental school, it's like so easy for me to say, oh, those are the silly days, oh, dental students, oh, so silly. Those were the, those were my, the days where I was my blunder years, right? But when I think about it, before dental school, when I was in college, dental school was all I dreamed about, It was like, dental school is the thing. It's the pinnacle of my existence. I have to get into dental school. Like, I remember when I really think back, I prayed so hard to get into dental school. I was like, oh God, please let me get into dental school. And when I got accepted, I was like crying. I was so happy I got into Loma Linda. I was so excited when I got my badge. It looked so cool with that picture with me looking in that tie. I looked so official. I could beep and get into doors that other people can't. It was so cool. But, like, now it's like, oh yeah, that happened, and I feel like that's not right. When we all look back, we've all been blessed, but it's so easy to just sort of forget about him and just kind of make him like sort of like make it a wash, like it's just in the past. Like, even before college, when I was in high school, college was all I ever thought about. And then when I got into college, no, it's not college anymore. It's about dental school. And now it's dental school. I'm a dentist. Now I'm a dentist. It's about the next thing, about owning a practice. And it's all about the next thing. And yet we don't take a moment and say, you know what? I've come a long way. I'm grateful for what I have. There was a time where I really wanted to, go to college. There was a time I really did want to go to dental school, and those things did happen. And I am grateful for it, And I'm sure each one of you, if you guys can just take a moment to look back, you guys can find something you're grateful for, something that maybe you didn't quite take a moment to think enough about. Because if you really do think about it, God has always been there for us and has been working in our lives. We can say, yeah, we can have God now and we have God in the future. But I think it's also important to look back and say, you know what? I did have God in my life back then as well. And I feel like that's really what allows us to deepen our connection with God. And I feel like that is what's going to help us to not be so caught up in this hype culture where it's about now, future. Because if we allow ourselves to value and be truly grateful for what we have that we didn't, it allows us to be more grounded and not be so caught up in these things and not be sold on empty promises. When I think about someone who didn't quite, and there's so many examples in the Bible, right? But one of the examples that I wanted to just share was, King Hezekiah. If you think about 2 King chapter 20, if you guys don't know who King Hezekiah was, he was the king who had that terminal illness, and he prayed to God, like, please, God, please, please show me a sign on, please save me from this illness. And the prophet Isaiah came and they arranged where God would turn the sundial back 10 steps. to show as a sign that he was cured. And the sad thing was he was cured, but not a second later, after he was cured, he was so happy to just show off all his riches to these messengers. And you know what's funny is that we know that King Hezekiah was so quick to turn because the messengers that he showed off all his riches to were messengers from a king who was trying to send him gifts for his illness, to, wishing him well. And King Hezekiah was like, well, God just cured me now. Let me just take this moment to just show off how awesome I am and all these stores of goods and gold I have. It's so easy how fickle we can be as humans, right? Where from one moment, something is so important to us, but when that important moment has passed, we just move on to the next thing as if it's just like it's nothing. And I think it's important that we take a moment, and I can just keep preaching on and on, but I just want today to be more about some positive self-reflection because I feel like we can do more of that, each of us. And I actually wanted to share quickly this video before I ended. It's this video of Mr. Rogers. I don't know if you know who Mr. Rogers is, but Mr. Rogers is a gentleman. He worked in for over 40 years. He was a minister, and his entire life he dedicated for wholesome television for children. And this video clip I want to share was a moment where it was at the tail end of his career, where everybody, the Emmys wanted to give him this lifetime achievement, this huge award, and to glorify him and to raise him up, to say how amazing of a person he is. And I just wanted to share his speech and just kind of see how just how humble the humility he shows in this speech. And I just wanted to share with that just before I end. And just give me a minute here to see if I got this right. Okay. Can everybody see? No.
Ladies and gentlemen, the best neighbor any of us has ever had, Choi Rogers. For giving generation upon generation of children confidence in themselves, for being their friend, for telling them again and again and again that they are special and that they have worth. It is my honor, on behalf of everyone here and on behalf of the millions of children whose mornings you have brightened with your kindness, to present you with this Lifetime Achievement Award.
Oh, it's a beautiful night in this neighborhood. So many people have helped me to come to this night. Some of you are here, some are far away, some are even in heaven. All of us have special ones who have loved us into being. Would you just take, along with me, 10 seconds to think of the people who have helped you become who you are? Those who have cared about you and wanted what was best for you in life. 10 seconds of silence. I'll watch the time. Whomever you've been thinking about, how pleased they must be to know the difference you feel they've made. They're the kind of people television does well to offer our world. Special thanks to my family and friends, and to my coworkers in public broadcasting, family communications, and this academy for encouraging me, allowing me all these years to be your neighbor. May God be with you. Thank you very much.
All right. So, from watching that video, I think it's safe to say, like he had put 40 years into this television program. And when he had his moment to like truly shine, like he really just didn't make it about himself at all. And, I thought his message was so beautiful because it is so important that we do look in the past and to be grateful, not just for what we have, but maybe also the people that we've had along the way. And I don't know if you guys were all here when I gave the sermon before where I was talking about my mom, and for those who don't know, my mom, she has a mental illness. She basically suffers from a lot, like from bipolar disease and, stuff like that. But, it's so easy for me to just sort of ignore her and just kind of like say, you know what, she's crazy. But like, really, like I wouldn't be where I am today, if it wasn't for her, because she had such a positive impact in my life, even though she was going through what she was going through. And, today I just want to kind of just take this moment. I've got some questions, and when we break up into our groups, I just want us to just, we can have all the discussions we want about all the philosophical debates, all the theological debates. But today I want it to be just a little bit different, where I just want us to all just kind of take a moment to positively reflect on our past and to think about how far we've come, as individuals today, how God has blessed us, how people in our lives have blessed us, and how we have improved and how we can continue to improve as well. So before I close, I just want to share this quick verse. It's in Colossians chapter 3, verses 15. Christ rule in your heart. And as members of one body, you were called to peace, and be thankful. Let the message of Christ dwell among you richly as you teach and admonish one another with all wisdom through psalms, hymns, and songs from the Spirit, singing to God with gratitude in your hearts. Let's bow our heads. Dear Jesus, Lord, I thank you for your Sabbath, Lord, but I just thank you, Lord, you have been with each one of us every step of the way. And it's just so easy for us, Lord, to just be caught up in the moment, to be so bought up into the hype of the next big thing, Lord. But I just pray, Lord, that maybe, maybe it's not all about the future. It's also about valuing what we have and how far we've come, Lord. And I feel like that is so important in enriching and deepening our relationship with you. And I just pray, Lord, that just for gratitude and more positive reflection on the past, Lord, so that we may become stronger and stronger in you and with you, Lord. And thank you once again for this time we can just be together. And I just pray that we will have a great discussion moving forward, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Sid, for the beautiful message you have shared with us. It gets me to think about the 10 Commandments of God. When he shared with us, like, these are the 10 Commandments for you guys. He said this: remember that I have saved you from the Egypt. Remember the past that I did. Remember the time we had together. So that really reminds me of the significance of our past story with God. So thank you for bringing that up. We have 3 questions from Sid. I'm going to put it up here and break into small groups. Thank